Hello friends, how are you doing today? My name is Sive and this is Stories in Sive, my booktube channel where I talk about books. And today's video is going to be a list of books that I'm hoping to get to in August. I really enjoyed setting TBRs recently and have actually been relatively sticking to them. I haven't always been the best at doing that in the past. Around the middle of June, I set myself a list of books that I wanted to read in June, a summer TBR, if you will, and it was very aspirational, and I'm not going to finish all of these by the end of August, which is like the month that is the last in summer. I'm counting it for the last month of summer, and so I'm including all of the ones that I feel I can realistically get to out of that list. I've done a good amount of reading this summer, and I'm actually really pleased with some of the stuff that I've read, and I'm excited to bring that into August and round out the summer being very productive and getting to a lot of books that have been on my TBR for a little while. So that's where I'm at for this month, and I'll walk you through the books. As usual, we're going to start out with the books that I am currently reading, and the first is my audiobook listen, and that is Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. This is the third and final book to the Infernal Devices trilogy, and I made it a little bit over halfway and my loan expired. So I'm gonna get it back in a couple of weeks, hopefully finish this up towards the end of August, but I am enjoying this so far. It's definitely not as good in my opinion as Clockwork Prince so far, but we'll see. I still have high hopes for this YA fantasy, steampunk, very relationship and trope heavy book, but I'm enjoying it. It's a really fun time. The only other book that I'm currently reading at the moment is my physical read, and that is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. This book I am so excited to talk about because I've had this book on my radar for almost 2 years now. I picked it up in March of last year, of 2021, and I got maybe a third of the way through it and then just left it for other things, and I gave my library loan back to the library and since have acquired my own physical copy. This is a fantasy trilogy. This is the first book, and it is about a young thief who goes and steals an artifact, and she was commissioned to steal it by her guy who gives her all the jobs. And it turns out that what she has stolen, she wasn't supposed to know what it was, but she opened the box and it could literally change her whole world. Basically, the magic system here is called scribing, and it is written language that is onto an inanimate object. Scribing imposes a new reality on an inanimate object. So it can change elements of it, it can change the motion of it. It basically rewrites reality for this one purpose on this artifact or this, material. They'll use wood, but then scribe it to be water resistant and more durable and like a stone. Or there are weapons that are made with scribing, which is just so insane. There's this one weapon that I've read so far, I'm maybe 100 pages into it, called the Whip. And this guy uses this, and it's basically a ball on the end of a stick. The ball on the end of the stick is scribed to basically think that whenever a lever on the stick is hit, that it is mid-fall, 1,000 feet in the air, and it basically goes really straight, really fast, and it's a very deadly weapon. This has just been such a fun read so far. I'm really enjoying it, and I do have high hopes for the rest of this trilogy. It's definitely something that is very up my alley, very heavy in the combat. You can definitely tell there's a political conspiracy going on. There are different houses and factions in control of this area called Foundryside, and I'm just really excited to see where the story takes me. The next book on my TBR for August is Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney, and this is a very special book. It is the first book that Sally Rooney ever put out, and I've read her other two and have absolutely loved them, so I'm now going into her backlist. This story is going to be literary fiction. I know that I really enjoy Sally Rooney's writing. She's got such a lyrical and interesting way of writing dialogue and experience, and the characters that she forms in the past have just really hit home with me. I can see myself growing into this 28, 29-year-old, which is typically this character she writes, which is late 20s, early 30s women and men in their career, starting out with their career, trying to navigate their new living situation or a new friendship or relationship. That's typically the character she writes, and I resonate really heavily with the way that she's written some of the, especially in Beautiful World, Where Are You?, which was one of my favorite reads of last year. I love that book, so I'm excited to get to Conversations with Friends. Plot-wise, it says Frances is a cool-head and darkly observant young woman, vaguely pursuing a career in writing while studying in Dublin. Her best friend is the beautiful and endlessly self-possessed Bobby. At a local poetry performance one night, they meet a well-known photographer, and as the girls are then gradually drawn into her world, Frances is reluctantly impressed by the older woman's sophisticated home and handsome husband, Nick. But however amusing Frances's and Nick's flirtation seem at the time, it begins to give way to a strange and then painful intimacy. Written with gem-like precision and marked by a sly sense of humor, Conversations with Friends is wonderfully alive to the pleasures and dangers of youth and the messy edges of female friendship. This is definitely something that I'm very excited to pick up and has been on my TBR for quite a while. If you're not getting the gist, like, all of these books are books that have been on my TBR for a while, and that's why they were put on that summer TBR list. So next is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This book is a sci-fi soap opera about a necromancer and basically the shenanigans of her trying to escape her house that she was born into. I know very little about the plot. I've just heard amazing things about this book. I'm really coming into my sci-fi Sive self, and I think that this would be a good place to go next, especially as I begin to explore the adult series that are in the sci-fi genre. I've really read only one other adult sci-fi series, and my other obsessions have been with YA, so I'm excited to get to this. Brought up by unfriendly, ossifying nuns, ancient retainers, and countless skeletons, Gideon is ready to abandon a life of servitude and an afterlife as a reanimated corpse. She packs up her sword, her shoes, and her dirty magazines and prepares to launch her daring escape, but her childhood nemesis won't set her free without a service. So I'm really excited to get to this. Again, been on my TBR for quite some time, and I'm ready to get this one under my belt. Now we're getting into the audiobooks that I'd like to pick up this month. This month, I'm participating in Camp Spoopathon, which is a readathon posted by Spoopy Hall, Holly, over on her channel. And this is basically a storyline where you're dropped in a camp, like a slasher, summer camp feel, in which you have to complete prompts and beat a murderer and then find your way to this camp. Anyways, so it's a super fun readathon that I'm participating in. And I'm going to be picking up 2 audiobooks that are horror or in the horror genre, and we can start with those. So the first prompt is this ghostly prompt. It's basically to read a book that you would consider ghostly, and for that prompt I am picking up Don't Look Back. This is a haunted house story by this guy Ben Cheatman, and basically I think these characters, this couple, win something and then they get to go stay in this mansion, but then it turns out that there's obviously something haunted at the place. I picked this one specifically because, one, it's free on Hoopla, and I was doing some research because I need a book that I can finish in one day. That's one of the bonus prompts that I can attach to this ghostly prompt. This is a horror novella. I love a good haunted house story, and it fits all of the prompts. I can also finish it in one day, but I don't really know a whole lot about the series or what to expect. I'm kind of going in with no expectations, not low expectations, but just none whatsoever. Mystery has always swirled around the Fenton house. In 1920, the house's original owner, reclusive industrialist Walter Lawarne, hanged himself from its highest turret. In 1996, the then inhabitants George Traherne and his wife Sophia and their young daughter Heloise disappeared without a trace. Neither mystery was ever solved. Adam is not the type to believe in ghosts. As far as he's concerned, ghosts are simply memories. Everywhere he looks in the cramped London home, he sees his dead son. So, that sounds pretty spooky to me. I'm excited to pick it up even though I don't know a whole lot about it. The next audiobook is also a horror, and that is The Upstairs House by Julia Fine. I've heard a little bit about this. I saw Books and Lala pick this up just last month, and she was decently impressed by it. This book is about a young mother who is just given birth and is doing her best to take care of her new baby in this house. She believes that she is seeing someone in the upstairs attic and that there is someone there. No one else believes her. Her husband is away a lot for work, and she is basically, what I'm getting from the synopsis is this book is definitely going to be about motherhood and the taxes that birth has on the female body. There's also a plot point that I believe this woman stopped her or didn't finish her dissertation, and she has some guilt and some disappointment around not being able to finish even though she has had her son, and it's just the balancing of individuality separate from motherhood versus when you become a mother, that changes your whole identity, and I'm getting a lot of that vibe. On top of that, it is pretty solid from the synopsis that there is some sort of mad woman upstairs in this house, and so it's going to be pretty much like motherhood identity plus horror and haunting, and I'm really excited to pick this up. And the last book that I have on my August TBR is Morningstar by Pierce Brown. I'm going to be picking up the audiobook for this later on in the month, and I'm really excited to get to the last installment of the Red Rising series, which is a sci-fi adult series. Like I said, I've been trying to get into my sci-fi era, and I read Golden Son in June. Yes, June. I can't really say a whole lot about the third book without like going into spoilers for the earlier installments. All I can tell you is that Golden Son did not have a happy ending for our characters, for the people I care about and are invested in. And it just makes me really nervous going into Morningstar. Like, I know that there's other books after Morningstar that are technically like part of the world, but not part of the Red Rising trilogy. So I know that there will be more content for me, but it does make me really nervous. It was a big old massive cliffhanger. I'm very scared to go into this, I'm not gonna lie. We follow Darrow and people who have come behind him as he's led a civil war against the people in power who are running the society, except it hasn't been a blatant civil war. It has been a very subtly fought war up until this point. He goes through a transformation and goes through schooling to become one of their like political allies basically, and he's blended in, changed his whole identity. It's basically like a spy espionage feel, except with like these big old massive like sci-fi elements, these tropes of war, planets, socioeconomic divide based on like really random stuff, which is like, I enjoy that. It's been very good so far. It hasn't like completely stunned me. Like, I'm not in love with it, I guess. I don't like love Darrow. I don't like miss all of his people, but I'm hoping that Morningstar is just going to solidify this series as like a top tier for me. I gave Red Rising 3 stars and Golden Son 4 stars, so I have high hopes that Morningstar will be that 5-star for me. So that is it. Those are the 7 books that I am excited to get to in the month of August. If you have any reading plans that you're excited about, let me know down below in the comments, or if you see a book on here that you really think I'd like, let me know to prioritize it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, feel free to subscribe. If you are not already, I would love to have you, and other than that, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!